So let's talk about what the Ashtanga Yoga practice is. First of all, I'm standing here today because I've done the Ashtanga Yoga practice about 6 days a week for the last 14 years of my life. And I've journeyed to India about 14 times in the last 14 years. So almost every year, maybe sometimes even twice a year, but those 14 times have included a trip to Mysore, which is where I met my teachers, Sri K. Pattabhi Jois and Arsharat Jois. And over the last 14 years, I've traveled to more than 50 different cities in more than 20 different countries sharing the message of Ashtanga Yoga. So more than just a physical practice, what I intend to share with you tonight is what the magic of the practice has really been about for me. It's not about putting your leg behind your head or lifting up into the perfect handstand. And it's also not about brute force. It's not about hyperflexibility. But it's about the true power that the Ashtanga Yoga can affect inside of your body, inside of your mind, and perhaps more importantly, inside of your life. So how does the practice work, right? Try to think about, just for a moment, a posture that you may have found really, really challenging in the beginning. Does anyone have a posture like that? Something you found kind of hard? Or did someone here find it completely easy from the beginning and you found some of the postures hard? So for me, one of the hardest postures was headstands. Anyone else have a hard time with headstands? It's kind of a hard posture, right? It's one of the ones that we try quite quickly in the Ashtanga method. But I tried the headstand and I fell over every day for almost a year, close to 10 months. And I fell over every single day. And this posture represented a huge challenge for me. The method that I learned in the beginning was very, very traditional. There wasn't a lot of technical instruction. It was just get up and do it again, get up and try again, get up and try again, just try it again. There wasn't a lot of discussion about particular muscles that I should try to develop. It was just get up and do it again. So I got up and I did it again for 10 months and I fell over every single day, more than once, probably 2 or 3 times every time I started the practice. And then I started the practice of headstand. I would get up and I would fall over. What happened is that over the course of those 10 months, the period of falling between when I got up into the headstand and when I went over slowly elongated. So at first I went up and then I fell immediately over. Then over maybe about 3 or 4 months, I would stay up in balance for a second or two. Those were some of the best seconds of my life up until that time. And I had actually come into this state of a balance. Then, the day that I was able to hold the balance in this posture and go up and down fluidly and not need to be near a wall or have someone spot me, that I was comfortable doing it in the middle of the room in front of someone else, I can tell you definitively that my life changed. And the way that it changed was concretely represented by the posture itself. Because up until the day that I could balance in a headstand, I was a person who was weak. I was a person who couldn't stand up for myself. I was a person who lacked basic emotional strength, lacked a certain sense of self-confidence. But the day I could balance in the headstand, well, that was the day that I understood the possibility, not the reality, but the possibility that I might be a person who could balance, not just on my head, but emotionally too. And for me, that's what this whole practice has been about. Starting from a place of weakness, emotional weakness, physical weakness, and then using the slow, steady progress along the postures into the experience of physical strength and the experience of emotional strength. And you don't need to end up doing the 4th series in order to have that journey and have that benefit. The only thing that you really need to do is show up and do the practice. When I went to Mysore for the first time, I'd been practicing about 10 months. And I hadn't really been doing a lot of Ashtanga Yoga since 10 months. But for me, up until that time, it was my longest relationship to date, 10 months. It's a long time. I've been doing this for a long time. I've been getting up in the morning, and I've been doing this practice. It's outlived any boyfriend. It's outlived any, other activities that I'd done, except maybe high school. I managed to graduate from high school and college, but those are different, So then, when I went to India, I really thought I'd been doing this for a while, and I was frustrated. How many of you have experienced frustration in your yoga practice, right? I'm experiencing it right now. Right? So we get frustrated. If those 10 months that I was trying to balance in headstand, I experienced a lot of frustration. And if you get frustrated when your leg doesn't go behind your head and you try, you get frustrated because you can't lift your body off the ground. And these frustrations for me really built up to this crescendo point when I was in India. Because I thought, well, now I've done it. I've gone all the way to India. I've met this master of yoga. And what I was most frustrated with was not any posture. I felt like I went all the way to India and I expected, naively, stupidly, youngly, you know, I expected that when I went there, everything would be perfect, you know. But I practiced there very intensively, and I woke up one morning and I felt worse. I felt like I was more crazy than I was at home. I felt more frustrated and more impatient. And what I realized is that in India, I had no one else to blame but me. Because when I was in my home, I could always say, well, oh, the traffic is really bad today. That's why I feel imbalanced. Oh, this person screwed up my order at Starbucks. That's why I feel imbalanced today. Oh, it's my culture. The United States government's going crazy. This is why I hate the president. I don't hate the president now, but I did then. Then that's why I feel, you know, imbalanced. All of these different things that I could blame externally. But when I went to India, it was me, and it was just me. It was me and my practice. I was doing exactly what I wanted to do. And yet here I was, still feeling impatient, judgmental, frustrated, anxious, at myself, uncomfortable in my own skin. I wanted to scream and run away, and I felt like, oh, why is this not working? I've been doing it for 10 months. You know, I was very, very serious about that. So I went and I asked my teacher, I asked Patabi Joyce, and I said to him, Guruji, I've been doing this practice for 10 months. You know, he probably was like, yeah, you know, what do you want, you know? He just looked at me like, And then I said, I just want to know where and when, where do you find the inner peace in the practice? Because I don't feel any better yet, you know? And then he asked me, you know, I actually had to repeat the question. Sharad had to do a little bit of translation. And then he sort of shuffled his newspaper and put it down. He looked at me, kind of furrowed his brow, looked for a little while. And then he said very calmly and sincerely, you do these 3 things. You do posture, you do looking, you do breathing. Many years. Then Shanti is coming, no problem. Only Sanskrit word he used was Shanti. He said posture. He didn't say asana, which was, I think, he sort of sized me up and was like, I don't think you know anything. You know, let's not use any words that may confuse your young, you know, naive little mind. So I was sincere, at least in my heart. And I learned later that in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, sincerity, meaning that you have to, in all earnestness, desire the end result of the spiritual practice of yoga. You have to, in all earnestness, want your realization. You have to, with your whole heart, desire a more peaceful life. This is one of the most important qualifications of a yogi, of a yoga practitioner, right? It's not that you want a handstand. Handstand is entertainment, right? It's fun, it's a tool, it's a mirror. But what you want, what keeps you coming to the practice is that desire for inner peace. And I had that. And that's what out of my naivete, Guruji spoke to my sincerity, and I really, really appreciate that in him. So when he said posture, he meant the asanas, the tools of the physical practice of Ashtanga Yoga. That's comprised of 6 series, of which we'll probably do the majority of the primary series tonight. And these postures are tools for you to gaze within yourself and ultimately transform yourself through that vehicle. And the second thing he said to me was looking, right? Looking is the English word that he used to represent what's called drishti in Ashtanga Yoga. And the Sanskrit word drishti means a focal point or a gazing point. Drishti is meant to train the mind. So instead of looking around the room, or instead of, and this is probably very important in the Ashtanga Yoga method, instead of closing your eyes, we gaze at one of 9 particular focal points. And this helps us keep the mind and the body, in the emotions, in the present moment, engaged in the task at hand. Guruji was very fond of saying, oh, eyes closing, sleep is coming, right? Some of the postures are really challenging, so you think, how could I ever sleep in these postures? But what he meant by sleep is zoning out. So if you close your eyes, you'll zone out, and you won't actually feel what's happening deep in the center of your body. So Drishti is meant to keep your mind steady and strong, to train the mind. But more importantly, drishti also comes from the same Sanskrit root word as drishtaya or drashtu, which means the seer, and the power of your ability to perceive. So when we train drishti, when you place your eyes either on the nose tip, in the eyebrow point, on your fingertips, or any other of the 9 drishtis in the Ashtanga method, the notion is that when you then return your gaze to the external world, the paradigm by which you view that external world has fundamentally shifted, so that you can see not the world of your judgments and your anxieties, but you can see the truth of reality. And what's beautiful about the yoga practice is that it assumes that this truth that's out there, and the truth that we sometimes don't perceive because we're judging or we're anxious in the world, this truth is perfect and is perfectly peaceful. And all we have to do in order to tap into that is just see the world as it really, truly is. That is the power of drishti at its highest incarnation, you could say. The last tool of the Ashtanga Yoga method that Guruji shared with me on my first trip to India was breathing. Breathing, all right? Breathing is so important in the yoga practice, particularly in the Ashtanga Yoga method. There's a couple of things that you should know about the breath. First of all, the breath that we use in the Ashtanga practice is based in the Oje Pranayama. So this is the Sanskrit word for the breath of victory. It's not this particular pranayama, but it's based in that. And the reason why that's important for you to make that distinction is that your breath, while you're doing the yoga practice, will fluctuate between, say, a 2 or 3 second inhalation to when you're very, very relaxed and comfortable, between a 5 and 10 second inhalation and exhalation. The Ujjayi pranayama is something that should be done while seated so that you can control inhalation and exhalation so that it can be 10-second inhalation and 10-second exhalation. This is part of a breathing practice. Now, the thing that these two share and why we use the Ujjayi pranayama as a foundation in the Ashtanga method is because through this conscious breath, we're sealing the lips and engaging the vocal cords a little bit to resonate the breath. And it's the resonant breathing with sound that will also help you engage your pelvic floor and suck in your lower belly. This provides a strong foundation for the core strength of all of the postures in the Ashtanga method. But at the same time, it allows you the tool to control the length of inhalation and the length of exhalation. But you can't do 10-second inhalation, 10-second exhalation while you practice. For those of you familiar with the sun salutations, think about how long it would take you to make 10-second inhalation, 10-second exhalation to do sun salutation A. 10 seconds to raise your arms. That's a really long time. 10 seconds to fold forward. If you practice traditional Mysore style, if you start doing this, your teacher will come over and quickly hurry you up. Why? Because they want to leave at some moment. And if you do the whole practice, we have to end. It's 8:45. You got to get out of here, right? So the idea is that when you're doing a breathing practice, you can control inhalation, exhalation to be 10 seconds. But in your practice, only thing that matters is that inhalation and exhalation should be even and equal to each other. So if you take 5-second inhalation during the sun salutation, you should take 5-second exhalation. If you take 2-second inhalation because the posture is, very, very vigorous and it's stressing out the body and you need to breathe a little quicker, you should equalize that. So you have 2-second inhale, 2-second exhale. All right, so somewhere between 2 and 5 throughout the practice. As you control your breath, you will control your state of arousal or your nervous system. Now, the yoga practice seeks to challenge your nervous system. Anyone who thinks that yoga is easy probably hasn't done a lot of yoga, because even relaxation-based yoga challenges your comfort zone. For example, if you're meant to hold a posture over a bolster, something like that for a long time, usually if you join a class, probably you would have removed yourself from the posture long before the teacher has decided the class should remove itself from the posture. Now, in the Ashtanga method, we hold postures for about 5 breaths. Today, when we practice together, what you'll notice is that my version of 5 is different than your version of 5, okay? Do your best to stay and surrender into that anyway. The second thing that's important about the yoga practice is that all styles of yoga ask your body to do things that you've never done before. For example, if you've never stood on your head, the yoga practice asks you to stand on your head. If your leg's never been behind your head, the yoga practice asks you to put your leg behind your head. The yoga practice asks you to bend your joints and your back and your body in ways that you never imagined possible. And this is so important because it's only at the limit of what you believe is possible for yourself and your body that you know who you truly are. And it's only at the limit of what you know yourself to be that your nervous system gets stressed. You need in your practice to challenge your limits of what you know you can and cannot do. Because in that moment, your breath will be challenged. And in that moment, your yoga starts. For example, the first time I balanced in headstand, I almost screamed, right? Screaming is usually an indication that the nervous system is turned on. Has anyone ever screamed in a posture? Ah! You know, sometimes you scream, no, right? Stop! Or just made a little noise. Sometimes I make a little whiny noise, like, oh, you almost surprise yourself. This is an indication that there's a nervous system response. Now, those noises we make in the practice, they also come in our life, right? So if you have short, shallow breathing, or if you make exasperated sort of, you know, squeaking sounds in the yoga practice, probably that same nervous system response exists in your life. So you use the yoga practice manufactures a false stress so that it triggers the same neurological response that you would normally experience under deeply stressful situations. And then instead of screaming, running away, freaking out, or you know, going into old habit patterns, the yoga practice asks you then to breathe, stay focused, and stay in the posture. So with these three tools known as the Tristana method, the three prongs of the Ashtanga yoga practice, you can rehabilitate your physical body and also train the nervous system and train the mind to be steady and calm in the face of any challenge, any stress, and any adversity. This, for me, is the true power of the Ashtanga yoga method, because with this tool, you can be brave and be courageous in any situation. You can have the ability to tap into power and strength that you can't even perhaps imagine is possible, all right? Now, we're going to get started practicing the primary series of the Ashtanga yoga method. One important tool of the Ashtanga practice is that we cultivate the inner fire. This inner fire is called Agni, which is the Sanskrit word for fire, and it's the fire of purification. So what's the opposite of fire? What do you think? Water? So can anyone want to guess where I'm going? So I'm going to ask you to drink now if you want to drink, and then drink after the practice, okay? So fire is the opposite of water. Water is people are quickly opening their water bottles and taking your last sips. You know, the idea is that if you develop that internal fire, if you stop and drink, you'll actually put the internal fire out a little bit. On a physiological level, the primary series is meant to cleanse our digestive system and cleanse our inner organs. So if you put water into the organs while they're in a state of cleansing, then they'll move into a state of digestion and processing, even water, so that the cleansing will not be as deep. So you want to drink before and after the practice, but not during. Of course, unless you have some sort of a medical condition that would require that you drink water, or if anyone is pregnant, then you can drink and take as many breaks as necessary, okay? Any questions before we get started? Okay. So what I'd like you to do again is to follow my count as much as possible during the practice, all right? It's a little inconvenient for you at certain times. Just try to surrender as much as possible, all right?